So, quick question. If I told you there was a chair, one single chair, that has personally caused more assassinations, poisonings, forced suicides, and family betrayals than literally any other seat of power in human history, would you sit in it? Yeah, thought so. You'd absolutely sit in it. Humans are built different, and by different, I mean stupid. So let's talk about the single deadliest job application in history, Emperor of Rome. Historically, Facts Part 26. Before we start, a body count. Every time someone dies because of this chair, we're adding 1 to the counter. Current score? 0. Let's fix that. The throne. Here's the thing that makes the Roman throne uniquely cursed compared to basically every other crown in history. It was never actually supposed to exist. Augustus, the first emperor, built the whole system on a technicality. He called himself first citizen, not king, because Romans had a 500-year phobia of the word king after they kicked their last one out. So the position of emperor was never legally defined. No clean succession law. No eldest son inherits, everyone else deals with it. Just vibes, bloodlines, and whoever the army liked that week. And that's the curse. Not a witch, not a mummy, not a haunted jewel. Just bad paperwork. Because when the rules for getting a job are unclear, guess what fills the gap? Whoever has the biggest army standing closest to you. Enter the Praetorian Guard, the emperor's personal bodyguard unit, loyal not to Rome, not to the Senate, but to whoever pays them the best that month. Rome basically handed a loaded gun to a group of guys and said, "Please don't," and then acted shocked every single time they did. Augustus himself, by the way, dies peacefully of old age, which, looking back, was basically the last time anyone managed that on this chair for a very long while. Section 1. The early body count. Let's meet our contestants. Tiberius, Emperor number 2, gets so paranoid of being murdered that he moves to an island and rules the entire empire by mail. Bold strategy. Doesn't even work. He probably gets smothered to death by his own guards anyway, because apparently even hiding on an island isn't island enough. Body count. 1. Caligula, Emperor number 3, starts off fine, then reportedly tries to make his horse a senator, which, honestly, better resume than half of Congress. He starts declaring himself a living god, which is a great way to make your bodyguards start whispering to each other in hallways. The Praetorian Guard get tired of his nonsense and stab him to death, right there in the palace corridor. Body count. 2. Wait, hold on, says Caligula's uncle Claudius, hiding behind a curtain because he assumes he's next on the list. Please don't kill me. I'm just a guy with a stutter who reads books and has never once tried to make an animal a politician. The guards look at him and go, "Actually, you'll do." And that's it. That's how you become the most powerful man on Earth in the year 41 AD. Not by conquering anyone, not by winning an election, by hiding, behind a curtain, at the right time. Claudius actually turns out to be decent at the job, expands the empire, invades Britain, keeps the lights on for over a decade. Reward for good behavior? His own wife allegedly poisons him with a plate of mushrooms so her son from a previous marriage can take the throne instead of his actual biological son. Nothing says, "till death do us part," quite like literally arranging the death party yourself. Body count. 3. And that son is Nero. Section 2. Nero and the Chaos Spiral. Nero is what happens when you give an unqualified teenager unlimited power, an empire's treasury, and 0 consequences. He murders his own mother, allegedly tries a collapsible boat first, which fails spectacularly, so he just has her stabbed instead, like a man who really committed to the bit. He reportedly kicks his pregnant wife to death in an argument. Half of Rome burns to the ground on his watch, and depending which historian you trust, he was either fiddling around while it happened or actively singing about the fall of Troy like it was his personal opera. This is fine, Nero says, rebuilding a chunk of the burned city into a giant golden palace for himself. The Senate, shockingly, does not think this is fine. The army turns on him. Even the Praetorian Guard, his own personal murder squad, decide he's cooked. Nero flees the city, realizes there's no version of this where he survives with his head still attached, and takes his own life in the year 68 AD, reportedly muttering something about what a great artist the world is losing. The world respectfully disagreed. Body count, 4. And here's where the chair gets really cursed, because Nero's death doesn't end the chaos. It detonates it. With no clear heir and no actual succession law, 4 different men grab the throne within a single year. Historians literally just call it the Year of the 4 Emperors, because nobody could be bothered to come up with anything fancier. One gets murdered within months of taking the job. One gets overthrown by his own troops. One rules for barely a season before getting got. Legions that were supposed to be guarding the empire's borders instead start marching on each other, because apparently defending Rome from actual enemies was less appealing than defending your guy's claim to a fancy chair. Body count by the end of year 69, somewhere around 8. Though honestly, at this point, Rome stops counting too. Section 3. The Peak of the Curse. Eventually, Vespasian wins the 4-emperor deathmatch, not because he's the most beloved guy in Rome, but because he simply has the biggest, angriest army standing behind him. Rome, ever the picture of stable democratic values, goes, yeah, okay, works for us. He hands the throne to his son Titus, who does fine, dies young of illness, and gets remembered fondly, which by this chair's standards counts as a fairy tale ending. Then it goes to his other son, Domitian, who very much does not stick the landing. Domitian gets so paranoid of assassination, with good reason, because several people are actively planning one at any given time, that he starts executing anyone who so much as looks at him funny in a hallway. It does not help. If anything, it speeds things up. His own wife is allegedly in on the plot that finally kills him, stabbed by a group of palace staff who'd simply had enough. Body count is climbing so fast at this point, we might need a bigger whiteboard. For the next 100-ish years, the throne actually calms down quite a bit, mostly because a string of emperors starts adopting a competent chosen successor instead of relying purely on bloodline roulette. Novel concept. Picking the guy who's actually good at the job instead of just the guy who happens to share your blood type. It works great. Historians literally call this stretch the era of the 5 good emperors, which is Rome's version of a participation trophy for simply not murdering each other for a while. It works great, right up until it stops. And Rome slides right back into the same murder cycle for the next 2 centuries, harder than ever. By the 3rd century, Rome is going through emperors so fast, historians just call the whole era the crisis of the 3rd century, which is a very polite academic way of saying everybody was stabbing everybody, constantly, for decades. The record holder for shortest reign in this stretch? Emperor Gordian I lasted about 3 weeks before things fell apart around him. Another guy, Didius Julianus, straight up bought the throne at auction. The Praetorian Guard, in one of history's most shameless moments, literally sold the job of Roman emperor to the highest bidder like it was a used car. He lasted 66 days before getting executed by a rival general who apparently felt he overpaid. 66 days. That's less time than most people spend on a gym membership before quitting. By this point, the body count isn't really a counter anymore. It's more of a general vibe of, yeah, probably dozens, don't ask. Section 4. How the curse ends. Eventually, one emperor looks at this absolute disaster of a succession system and goes, you know what? Maybe the actual problem here is having one single all-powerful chair that literally everyone within marching distance wants to murder their way into. So he splits the empire into 4 pieces, ruled by 4 guys simultaneously, hoping that spreading the target around will spread out the assassination attempts too. Reader, it does not work. The rule of 4 just turns into a 4-way argument that eventually gets won by one guy, Constantine, who does the smartest thing anyone's done with this chair in 300 years. He builds an entirely new capital, Constantinople, and just leaves. Packs up the whole imperial vibe and moves it somewhere the Praetorian Guard doesn't have 4 centuries of we run this town energy baked into the walls, the streets, and apparently the group chat. The Western throne, the original cursed chair, limps on for another century and a half after that, getting weaker and more irrelevant by the decade, before finally getting quietly retired in 476 AD, when a Germanic commander basically walks up to the last Western emperor, whose name is, I promise I am not making this up, also Romulus, and tells him to just stop being emperor. No final battle, no dramatic last stand, no epic siege, just paperwork basically. The most cursed throne in history doesn't end with a bang. It ends with a shrug and a guy quietly packing up his office. Closing, so what's the final body count? Depends how generously you're counting, but conservative historians put the number of Roman emperors who died violently, murdered, executed, forced into suicide, or killed in the chaos of civil war at somewhere around a third of everyone who ever held the job. A third. Imagine applying for a promotion knowing there's a 1 in 3 chance a guy with a sword shows up at your desk by Friday, and still, every single time, hundreds of people lined up for the position anyway. And that's the wildest part, isn't it? People still wanted the job. Every single time. Because that's the real curse. It was never the chair. It was never a witch or a mummy or bad feng shui in the palace. It was us. Humans looking at unlimited power and going, yeah, I'll take my chances right up until the sword shows up at their office door. Anyway, if you want to see me cover a throne that's somehow even more cursed than this one, and trust me, there are contenders, let me know in the comments which bloodline deserves the crown. Pun absolutely intended. Subscribe, become a member, and maybe don't apply for any jobs that come with a bodyguard unit of their own. Try not to get stabbed this week.